All right, as Nigerian businesses, navigate a tougher global trade environment and a rapidly evolving domestic market, access to markets, capital, and efficient trade channels have become a defining factor for growth. 2025, a year of adjustment, for many consumer-facing businesses, shaped by, a stable currency, that's not bad, shifting consumer demand and changing trade, dynamics. So what lessons stand out and what should businesses be preparing for in 2026? Joining me for this conversation, we have Ehime Eigbe. She's the founder and CEO of SweetKiwi, and we'll review what's played out so far. Great to have you. Good morning. Happy New Year.
Good morning. Happy New Year to you as well.
Yeah, so I know you do business in and out of Nigeria.
Yeah,
Talk to me about 2025. We like to take stock because somehow, it gives us direction into the new year. What stood out for you, in 2025?
I would say in 2025, doing business was the international trade or international markets. There's a lot of volatility, especially because a lot of the trade policies that were changing in the US and often very unstable. There was definitely opportunities just as there were problems. I think even in those problems, there were definitely opportunities, especially for businesses in Africa. And I think we saw like growth with Africa trade, even Nigeria, just the growth in how much goods were being exported, just overall in general. But the gaps I would say I saw it was a lot of commodities, and there's still a lot of big room for processing and manufacturing so that we could earn more of the dollar of the final price of the goods.
Yeah, because it's quite interesting, analyzing the, strong or best performing currencies of, 2025. And most of the time, it was due to, gold exports because of rising gold prices and, some other, interesting metals that most of these countries, export. But, did we see some kind of improvement, with some Nigerians, sending out finished products?
Absolutely.
To international markets.
Absolutely. I think we've seen a lot of growth with more processed goods getting into international markets. I've seen brands, for example, like Real Fruit, now exporting to major retailers in the US and being accepted into brands like, I think they're now in TJ Maxx across the US and Canada, possibly in other countries. There's definitely room for it. There's room for processing. There's room for us to catch up with the rest of the market and process the goods that we have. Something I've come to recognize is a lot of the goods that we have, a lot of the natural resources, hibiscus, cashews, these are things that are in high demand in the international markets. A lot of the innovation that's happening in the more sophisticated markets start with a lot of the natural ingredients that we have and sometimes take for granted. And there's a lot of growth and room for growth in those commodities for processing into very innovative finished products. One of the things that I saw that was so exciting to me was I saw a company that does akara chips. Akara chips. And Americans loved it, and they really took to it.
Wow, that's interesting. I'm trying to figure out how that would taste, but I guess it would be like chips, maybe plantain chips.
Akara. But with akara.
Yeah. I'll try that out. But definitely, looking at what's played out so far, I seem to have noticed that fashion brands in Nigeria, they seem to be finding a market out there.
Absolutely.
And I see some of them, pricing their goods in dollars.
Absolutely.
And it seems they're getting orders, coming from out there. But what I've noticed is they get really pricey. And sometimes you see some of these brands, maybe they're about 4 years or so. So the brands are not really that known. But their products are really expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how they're able to do that, because you respect a brand that's, mature, that's been there, everyone knows you, then somehow your prices, how do you marry that?
I think the rise of social media, one of the things I was going to say is that we're now in a global economy. What you're doing all the way in Lagos, Nigeria is being seen all the way in Atlanta, it's been seen in New York at the same time. And especially when it comes to something like fashion, we women, we love to look good, we love to feel good. If we see something online that looks good, even though it's coming all the way from Nigeria, we want it. And so a brand that's maybe not well known here, but has developed some notoriety on social media can definitely demand a high price. Because if I was an American, I was buying something here that was really expensive. For me in America, by the time you convert it to dollars, it's nothing compared to if I got someone to tailor make something for me in America. So they feel like they're getting a big, it's a big win for them. I have nieces who've never been to Nigeria, who every time they have some type of African gathering want to make outfits that are made in Nigeria. So in fact, one day we were having a conversation because I saw the dresses and I'm like, how did you have this made? Oh, we found the girl on Instagram. We made this and, oh, it wasn't too expensive, on their front. And I think that globalization, and I keep saying that we're all basically one huge country now because we're all watching each other on these social media channels, which has unified us way more. There's hardly any borders anymore. And now you can have something made in Nigeria, have it delivered straight to your house in DC or in California. So especially when it comes to fashion, that gap has been closed, especially because there are no regulations like when it comes to the food industry. If you're mailing in something that's food-based, has to go through the FDA, has to meet certain requirements. So I feel like the fashion industry is able to break through those barriers a lot quicker. All you have to do is make something that's really stylish, really trendy, and obviously have an audience on social media. And I think a lot of people in the fashion industry have really cracked that. And we're seeing so much growth in that industry. We're seeing them being able to demand, a higher price for their goods. And, in conversation with a lot of them, even producing here in Nigeria can be expensive. The cost of diesel, the cost of just being able to run and operate, taxes and everything else, and they have to be profitable.
Right. Yeah, we did hear from, Mr. Dangote saying that he prices, exports, cheaper than, what we sell here because of what you just, mentioned now. So, I know you do business, abroad too. You also have a business here in Nigeria. What was it like, doing business in the U.S. in 2025? What Trump presidency, what's changed?
A lot of policies changed for us. A lot of the policies around immigration, a lot of policies just around how we do business, access to finance. A lot of things changed so quickly. Also, the trade things that came down in terms of tariffs that were put on any imports was a big issue as well. And a lot of businesses have been trying to navigate what that looks like in the new America with the new policies. So for us, that looks like being more local. How do we source local? How do we find more local things for our products? And that's been a huge change for us also because we work directly with farmers. The big impact around ICE and the raids, a lot of people who work with farmers are not maybe necessarily legal, or I'm trying to find the best formal way to put that. But those ICE raids were big disruptors in any industry that depends heavily on farming.
Right. So how would you say, diaspora businessmen and women, how would you say they performed, in 2025? Were they able to, meet up, with revenue and, some of the policy changes?
I think it was a tough year for everybody. I also witnessed a lot of businesses closing down and shutting down, not being able to,
That's in the
to
US.
grow in the US. And I also witnessed just businesses not being able to raise funding. Because investors are very skeptical. It's a tough time with a lot of uncertainty, and it's not the best time for investors to invest in things. Everyone's trying to hold on to their funds because everything is so uncertain. They don't know what's coming down the pipeline. And I think a big thing is us getting to a place of stability so that things are more predictable, because that's what allows more investment in the system.
So that means looking at 2025 in the US, doing business, unpredictability.
Unpredictability.
Right. And so how did you say 2026 is going? Because we still have those same issues here. So what are you seeing? How do you think some of these businesses can, navigate some of these uncertainties, doing business in the US and, having to, go through all some of these changing policies we're seeing there?
I think for us as aligning, trying to understand the direction that the administration is trying to go in and aligning with that. They have an American first mentality, trying to align with that and see how we align also with what the administration is trying to achieve. The truth is, as much as, you want to be an American first, there are just some goods and, things that don't grow in America. Cashews don't grow in America. Americans love cashews. Hibiscus doesn't grow in America. They love hibiscus. So it's how do you align? Because they really don't have these products. So how do you stand out? And I think this is where the government comes in, and we need to start doing more advocacy. and outreach to have conversations around these products that are really unique to Africa. How do we open a pathway to allowing these goods come in and removing the tariffs? And I think sometimes we're all concerned about, oh, this policy, Trump's put out this policy, but is there anyone engaging? Is there anyone advocating for Africa, as a trade bloc? Do we have any advocates? Is there anyone speaking on our behalf? A lot of things happen, like the shutting down of USAID, the shutting down of Prosper Africa. One of the things that people don't know is that Prosper Africa was actually started by the Trump administration. But do they know that? Is anyone having these conversations? Is anyone reminding him that, oh, this was your initiative? It could have been shut down because it was tied to USAID, and maybe he just thought, oh, it's a part of USAID. But he actually started that initiative, and there must have been a reason why. But is anyone reminding him? Because also, the people around his administration have changed from the last time. And maybe these new people don't even have that information. I feel like even with how we feel about government, we always have to engage. On the private sector, even as countries engage with the US to see what are the pathways. It's very obvious to see what their concerns are. They want less dependency on China, but maybe they're open to a little bit of manufacturing in Africa. But who's advocating for that?
Right, and with a Trump-led U.S., at this point, who do you think should speak for Africa, at this point? Or do you think we should speak individually, as African countries? What do you think we should do here?
I think that we need to be a bit more united in how and be a big voice block, even if it's just West Africa, even if it's just South Africa, or East Africa, but we need to start being a little more united. So as a U.S. business, if you go to any other country, they have U.S. economic blocks or offices where you can go to and say, they're called the American Chambers. So you go to AmCham and say, hey, I want to do business in Nigeria. I want to do business in South Korea. And then they help you. They open up a map. And I kept thinking to myself, but why do we not have an African Chambers? Maybe it's a little bit more expensive for Nigeria to have a Nigerian Chambers in every country. But what if, as a bloc, we could have an African Chambers that's doing the work of opening up trade in different countries? Right. And so as an African, you have a business and you want to come into the U.S., your first stop should be the African Chambers.
That makes sense. Yeah, well, I think we should explore that. Thanks, for that. But let's bring it down here, because you also do business in Nigeria. Yeah. Tax laws, effect yesterday, 1st of January. What are you doing, right now to align, at this point?
I think, obviously, compliance, but we're trying to really understand the laws, and really align and see, where do we have points where we want to protest some of the tax laws? Because I think our concerns are always around multiple taxation and making sure that we're being taxed fairly, but also beyond that, that we're receiving the benefits of the taxes that we're paying for. And a big concern for us is we're paying these taxes, but we still are generating our own power. We're still providing our own security. We're still the ones paving our roads. We're repairing our cars every other day. So we also have all these other informal taxes that come out of the fact that we're not getting the benefits of the taxes that we're already paying. And so a conversation that I've had more recently is, how do we start to drive some accountability for the government so that they're accountable to us about how our funds are being used?
Right. So at this point, do you think it will cost businesses more to try and understand, these new tax laws and compliance?
Absolutely.
What are you budgeting, at this time to make that reality?
At this time, we have meetings scheduled this week with attorneys, with tax professionals, to understand how it affects the whole chain of team members, from the ones that are not earning up to the gap to the ones, because a lot of things have to change in how we're also deducting taxes from our staff, our team members, to also ensuring that we're compliant. Something that was brought to my attention is that consumption tax may be going away. So there's all these adjustments that needs to be made. But I think the first step is really understanding all of the laws and how it applies to us specifically.
Right. So, looking at 2026, definitely, where are you seeing opportunities, for, small businesses, entrepreneurs that, are looking for, that great opportunity, in 2026? What are you seeing so far?
I would say for me is innovation in food, beauty, fashion, is to continue innovating and trying to reach a wider audience. a broader audience. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of places that are doing the work. We were on a trade mission with Afrexim in last year, October, in Germany, and we were able to meet a lot of international buyers that are looking to buy from Africa. There's a lot of opportunity within Africa itself to distribute our products too. But I think it's adding value into the agricultural value chain. I think that's where the big opportunity is.
Right. All right. So brand new year, and definitely we're hoping, for the best,
Okay.
and businesses can actually do business in a fantastic environment that helps everybody. But I still hear optimism
Of course.
in your voice.
Of course.
Going into 2026. Thank you so much for coming on today. Ehime
Thank you so
Eigbe
much.
is the founder and CEO of SweetKiwi.
Thank
you for
you so
coming on
much.
today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll take a moment now.